The day after the earthquake, Fort Carson was oddly quiet. Emergency teams had worked through the night to secure damaged buildings, and now the morning sun revealed the full extent of the destruction. But it also revealed something else, something that made Commander Stoneheart stop in his tracks. In the base's main square, a peculiar scene was unfolding. Crystal Song, still recovering from her injuries, sat in a hover chair provided by the alien medical team. Next to her lay Max, his chin resting gently on her crystalline knee. Around them, a small crowd of both humans and aliens had gathered, watching in fascination. "I've been studying the historical records they provided," Crystal Song was saying to her fellow aliens. "Dogs and humans have been partners for over 15,000 Earth years. But they weren't always like this." She reached down to scratch behind Max's ears, her movements careful but growing more confident. Stoneheart moved closer to listen. Thompson stood nearby, watching with a small smile. "The humans didn't conquer them," Crystal Song continued. "They didn't force them to submit. Instead, both species chose to help each other. The dogs offered protection and hunting skills, while humans offered food and shelter. Over time, they evolved together." One of the younger alien officers raised his crystalline hand. "But they're predators. How did humans know they wouldn't turn against them?" "Trust," Thompson said, stepping forward. "It all comes down to trust. Dogs could have chosen to remain wolves, hunting alone. Humans could have chosen to see them only as threats. Instead, both sides saw the potential for something better." Max lifted his head and looked at Stoneheart, his brown eyes seeming to hold ancient wisdom. The commander found himself thinking about all the worlds the Granite Collective had conquered, all the species they had deemed too dangerous to be left free. "In all our travels," Stoneheart said slowly, "we have never encountered anything like this. When we find a powerful species, we subdue it. When we find dangerous creatures, we eliminate them. But you turned your planet's predators into protectors." A small group of children had wandered over, drawn by Max's presence. Without hesitation, the dog got up from Crystal Song's side and walked over to greet them, tail wagging gently. The alien officers tensed, but Stoneheart raised his hand to stop them from interfering. They watched as Max let the children pet him, his patience endless as small hands patted him with varying degrees of gentleness. When one child hugged him a bit too tightly, he simply turned his head and gave them a gentle lick, making them giggle. "I think I understand now," Crystal Song said softly. "What we saw as weakness, their gentleness, their ability to play with children, their desire to comfort, is actually their greatest strength. They choose to be kind when they could be cruel. They protect when they could destroy." Thompson nodded. "Max has taken down armed attackers to protect his handler. He's found lost children in wilderness. He's detected explosives that could have killed dozens. And yes, he also lets kids read him stories and helps veterans cope with trauma. That's not a contradiction. It's the whole point." Stoneheart's crystalline surface began to pulse with a deep, thoughtful glow. "Your people never needed to unleash the beast," he said, "because you understood something we didn't. True strength isn't about maintaining constant aggression. It's about knowing when to fight and when to show compassion." "Exactly," Thompson replied. "And dogs help us remember that every day. They're not our weapons or our slaves. They're our teachers." As if to emphasize the point, Max returned to Crystal Song's side, pressing his nose gently against her hand. The young alien officer's glow brightened as she realized he had checked on the children, but chosen to come back to her, sensing she still needed his comfort. Stoneheart watched this interaction, his mind racing with new possibilities. After 300 years of conquest, the Granite Collective's most fearsome commander was beginning to question everything he thought he knew about power, strength, and the nature of true partnership. 1 week after the earthquake, the scene at Fort Carson was very different from the day the alien fleet first appeared in Earth's orbit. The massive warships still hung in the sky, but they no longer seemed threatening. Instead, they looked more like curious visitors, their positions adjusted to avoid casting shadows over the base. In the newly rebuilt conference center, Commander Stoneheart stood before a mixed audience of humans and aliens. Max sat at attention next to Thompson, his fur freshly brushed for the important occasion. Crystal Song, now fully healed, sat in the front row, her crystalline form glowing with excitement. Members of Earth's United Nations, Stoneheart began, his voice carrying across the silent room, and representatives of the Granite Collective. I stand before you today to admit that I was wrong. A murmur ran through the alien delegation. In 300 years, their commander had never admitted to being wrong about anything. We came to Earth believing we had found another species that turned powerful creatures into weapons, he continued. We thought we would find beasts trained for war, monsters kept in check by force. Instead, we found something that has changed our understanding of strength forever. Max's tail thumped gently against the floor, making several aliens smile, something that would have been unthinkable just a week ago. In just 7 Earth days, we have learned more about partnership and trust than we learned in centuries of conquest. Your dogs, which we feared as weapons, have taught us that true power lies not in domination, but in cooperation. Stoneheart gestured to Crystal Song, who stood and walked to the podium. Officer Crystal Song has proposed a new initiative, which I fully support. The Granite Collective wishes to establish an alliance with Earth, beginning with a cultural exchange program. The young alien officer spoke up, her voice clear and confident. During my recovery, I spent many hours studying the history of human-canine partnership. We believe there are many species across the galaxy that, like Earth's dogs, might choose to work with us if we approach them with respect and understanding rather than fear. Thompson raised his hand. And how can we help with this? We would like to learn from your dog trainers, veterinarians, and behavioral experts, Crystal Song explained. In return, we offer our advanced technology and knowledge of the galaxy. Perhaps together we can help other species form the kind of bonds you share with your dogs. The human representatives exchanged excited looks. This was far better than the war they had feared just a week ago. And Stoneheart added, looking slightly embarrassed, I have a personal request. He reached into a crystalline pocket and pulled out a small treat, just like the one Thompson had given him to feed Rex during their first meeting. Max's ears perked up, but he stayed sitting until Thompson gave him a small nod. The dog walked calmly to the alien commander and sat down, looking up expectantly. With a gentleness that would have seemed impossible a week ago, Stoneheart offered the treat to Max. After taking it carefully, Max did something that made all the aliens gasp. He rolled over, asking for a belly rub. Is this allowed? Stoneheart asked uncertainly. Thompson laughed. Commander, I think you've just been adopted. That's Max's way of saying you're family now. As the most feared commander in 3 galaxies knelt down to give an Earth dog a belly rub, humans and aliens alike broke into applause. The sight of the crystalline being gently scratching Max's stomach while the dog's tail wagged in pure joy seemed to represent everything both species hoped to achieve together. I still don't understand one thing, Stoneheart said, looking up at Thompson. What exactly does good boy mean? Max's translator collar doesn't seem to have an equivalent in our language. Thompson smiled. That, Commander, is exactly what you're learning right now. Sometimes, the most powerful forces in the universe aren't about war or weapons at all. Sometimes they're about love, trust, and belly rubs. Max woofed in agreement, and for the first time in the history of the Granite Collective, their commander laughed, a sound like chiming crystals that echoed with pure joy. The massive alien warship dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light, its dark gray hull blocking out the stars above Earth. Behind it, 12 more ships emerged, their designs unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like floating mountains of metal, carved from asteroids rather than built in a shipyard. On the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Stoneheart stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His crystalline skin caught the light from Earth's sun, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the command deck. Like all members of the Granite Collective, his body appeared to be made of living stone, with patterns of quartz and obsidian swirling beneath his surface. "Scan complete, Commander," reported First Officer Rockbreaker, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "The humans have scattered their war beast facilities across their planet. They call them military bases." He paused, his crystalline features shifting in what passed for a frown among their kind. "But something is strange. The energy readings are far lower than expected for containment facilities." Commander Stoneheart's eyes narrowed, glowing with an inner fire. "These humans are cleverer than we thought. They must have found a way to keep their beasts dormant until needed." He turned to face the massive view screen showing Earth's blue-green surface. "In my 300 years of conquest, I have never seen a species so foolish as to think they can hide their true nature from the Granite Collective." The intelligence reports had been clear. Human military installations always contained these mysterious creatures they kept for war. The Collective's long-range observations had detected strange quadrupedal beings working alongside human soldiers. The humans had somehow managed to tame and weaponize the apex predators of their world. "Open a channel to their global communication network," Stoneheart commanded. "Let us see how they respond when their secret is exposed." The view screen flickered, and soon the commander's message was broadcasting to every screen on Earth. His crystalline face appeared on televisions, phones, and computers across the planet. "People of Earth," he began, his voice translated into all major human languages, "I am Commander Stoneheart of the Granite Collective. Our empire spans 3 galaxies, and we have conquered 1,000 worlds. We know your secret." He paused for effect. "We know about the beasts you keep." In the United Nations emergency session in New York, diplomats looked at each other in confusion. Nobody knew what the alien commander was talking about. "For too long, you have hidden your true military strength," Stoneheart continued. "We have seen your bases, where you keep these creatures of war. Did you think we wouldn't notice? That we wouldn't recognize the signs of a species that turns its planet's predators into weapons?" In the Pentagon's war room, General Williams turned to his staff. "Does anyone have any idea what he's talking about?" The room full of military experts could only shake their heads in bewilderment. "You have 2 Earth rotations to surrender and hand over control of all your war beasts," Stoneheart declared. "If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment of your military installations. We will not allow such dangerous weapons to remain in the hands of an unpredictable species." As the transmission ended, chaos erupted across the globe. Military bases went on high alert, governments called emergency meetings, and people everywhere trying to understand what beasts the aliens were so afraid of. At Fort Carson Military Base in Montana, Captain Jack Thompson was watching the broadcast with growing concern. Next to him, Max, his German Shepherd partner, tilted his head at the screen and let out a small whimper. "I know, boy," Thompson said, scratching behind Max's ears. "I think I know what they're talking about. And boy, are they in for a surprise." He looked down at his 4-legged companion, who responded by wagging his tail and giving his hand a gentle lick. "They've got no idea what Earth's war beasts are really like, do they?" As night fell over Earth, 13 alien warships hung in the sky like new constellations. Humanity had 48 hours to respond. 48 hours to explain to a race of living stone that their most feared weapons were actually humanity's best friends. Somehow, Captain Thompson had a feeling this first contact was about to take a very unexpected turn. The morning sun cast long shadows across Fort Carson's parade ground as 3 crystalline figures materialized in a shimmer of blue light. Commander Stoneheart stood in the center, flanked by his security detail. Their rocky forms glinted in the early light, making them look like walking jewels. Captain Thompson waited at the designated meeting point, standing straight and calm. Next to him, General Williams fought to keep his expression neutral. They had been chosen to handle this first face-to-face meeting because Fort Carson had one of the largest military working dog programs in the country. "Welcome to Earth," General Williams said, stepping forward. "We've reviewed your demands, and I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Stoneheart's eyes flashed like burning coals. "There is no misunderstanding. Our scans show this facility houses at least 30 of your war beasts. We demand to see them." Thompson cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm Captain Thompson, head of our military working dog program. If you'll follow me, I can show you what you're asking about." The aliens followed Thompson across the base, their crystalline feet making soft clicking sounds against the concrete. As they walked, other soldiers stopped and saluted, trying not to stare at the strange visitors. "Through here," Thompson said, opening the door to a large, well-lit building. Inside, they could hear barking. Stoneheart's security detail immediately raised their weapons, devices that looked like they were carved from pure diamond. "The beasts are aggressive," one shouted. Thompson raised his hands calmly. No, they're just excited to meet new people. They're friendly, I promise." The alien commander's face shifted in what might have been disbelief. "Friendly? These are your weapons of war. We have seen them training with your soldiers. They're our partners," Thompson explained, leading them into the main kennel area. Along both walls, German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, and Labrador Retrievers watched the visitors with curious eyes, tails wagging. Stoneheart moved closer to one of the kennels, studying the German Shepherd inside. "This creature, it shows no signs of rage or bloodlust. Where are its cybernetic enhancements, its battle armor?" "This is Rex," Thompson said, opening the kennel. The dog sat perfectly still, waiting for commands. "He's one of our best explosive detection dogs. Rex, say hello." Rex stood up, walked over to the aliens, and sat down again, tilting his head at the strange crystalline beings. His tail swept back and forth across the floor in a friendly rhythm. "Impossible," Stoneheart whispered. "Our intelligence showed these creatures taking down armed attackers, tracking through dangerous terrain, guarding your facilities." "Well, yes," Thompson agreed. "They help us with security, search and rescue, and detection work. But they're not weapons. They're highly trained working dogs who choose to help us because of the bond we share." As if to demonstrate, Rex looked up at Thompson, waiting for permission to move. When Thompson nodded, Rex stepped forward and gently sniffed at Stoneheart's crystalline hand. The alien commander jerked back in surprise. It's not attacking." "Of course not," Thompson smiled. "Here, hold your hand out flat, palm up." When Stoneheart hesitantly complied, Thompson placed a small treat in his crystalline palm. "Now hold it out to Rex." The entire alien security detail watched in amazement as their fearsome commander offered food to what they had believed was a terrifying war beast. Rex gently took the treat, then licked Stoneheart's hand in thanks. I don't understand," Stoneheart said, his voice unusually quiet. "Our reports said these were some of the most efficient hunting predators on your planet, that humans had somehow enslaved them for combat." "Your reports weren't entirely wrong," General Williams explained. "Dogs are descended from wolves, and they are excellent hunters. But thousands of years ago, they chose to work with humans instead of against us. We didn't enslave them. We became partners, friends. They help us because they want to." Stoneheart stared at Rex, who had sat down next to him, looking up with soft brown eyes. "You're saying these are not weapons at all?" "They're family," Thompson said simply. "And if you'd like, we can show you exactly what that means." As if understanding the importance of the moment, Rex let out a quiet woof of agreement. "If you found our working dogs surprising," Thompson said, leading the alien delegation across the base, "wait until you meet Max." Commander Stoneheart's crystalline features shifted with uncertainty. His earlier encounter with Rex had shaken his confidence, but he was still suspicious. "Another of your non-weapons." They approached a different building, its walls decorated with children's drawings. The sign read Fort Carson Family Support Center. Through the windows, they could see humans of various ages moving about inside. Max works here now, Thompson explained, opening the door. He retired from active military service last year. The alien security detail looked confused. "Your war beasts retire?" one asked. Inside, they found a large room filled with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. Children of military families played with toys while their parents talked with counselors. In the center of it all lay a distinguished-looking German shepherd with a gentle face and a gray muzzle. "That's Max," Thompson said proudly. He served 8 years as a military working dog in Afghanistan. Now he's a therapy dog, helping veterans and their families deal with stress and trauma. A small girl, no more than 6 years old, sat cross-legged next to Max, reading a book out loud to him. The dog listened attentively, his tail gently thumping against the carpet when she showed him the pictures. Stoneheart moved closer, his crystalline body catching the sunlight from the windows. This is one of your most experienced war beasts. Reading with a child. Max has seen more combat than most soldiers," Thompson explained quietly. He saved dozens of lives detecting explosives, helped capture dangerous criminals, and protected his handlers in firefights. But look at him now. As if on cue, a veteran in a wheelchair rolled into the room. Max's ears perked up, and he gently nuzzled the girl's hand before standing. With careful steps, he walked over to the veteran, placing his head in the man's lap. "Hey there, old friend," the veteran said, his tense shoulders relaxing as he scratched behind Max's ears. "Rough day today. Glad you're here." Stoneheart watched in fascination as the dog seemed to understand the human's distress. Max stayed perfectly still, offering silent comfort, his presence somehow making the room feel calmer. "I don't understand," the commander admitted. "A creature with such combat experience. Shouldn't it be aggressive? Traumatized? Our war beasts must be kept in containment between battles because they know nothing but violence." Thompson shook his head. "That's the thing you're missing. Dogs aren't weapons we force to fight. They're partners who choose to protect. Max didn't serve because we made him. He served because he loved his handlers and wanted to keep them safe." The little girl had finished her book and now walked over to them, seemingly unafraid of the crystalline aliens. "Are you here to meet Max?" she asked Stoneheart. "He's the best listener ever. Mom says he has a healing heart." The alien commander looked down at her, then at Max, who had left the veteran and was now sitting calmly between them. "A healing heart. But our intelligence said, try petting him," the girl suggested. "He likes it when you scratch right here." She demonstrated on Max's head, making the dog close his eyes in contentment. Stoneheart hesitated, then slowly reached out his crystalline hand. Max didn't flinch at the strange touch, instead leaning slightly into it. The commander's hand began to glow softly with an inner light, a sign of strong emotion among his people. "This is impossible," he whispered. "A creature that can go from warrior to healer, that can be both protector and comforter. That's what makes dogs special," Thompson said. "They're whatever we need them to be. Guard, friend, therapist, playmate. Because they choose to be. That's not weakness, Commander. That's a different kind of strength." The little girl nodded wisely. "Max says you seem nice, even if you're made of sparkly rocks." For the first time since arriving on Earth, Commander Stoneheart's face formed what might have been a smile. But before he could respond, alarms began blaring across the base. Max worked his way through the rubble of the conference center, his nose close to the ground. Every few steps, he would pause, lift his head, and sniff the air. Behind him, Thompson, Stoneheart, and a mixed team of humans and aliens followed carefully. "He's got something," Thompson said as Max suddenly stopped and began pawing at a specific spot. The dog let out 2 sharp barks, his signal for finding survivors. "Life signs detected," one of the Granite Collective members confirmed, holding up a crystalline scanner. 3 meters down, but there's no clear path. Max wasn't waiting. He moved along the pile of debris, testing each step carefully before putting his weight down. His training told him exactly what to do: find the safest route to the trapped people and mark it for the rescue teams. Remarkable, Stoneheart murmured, watching the dog work. No aggression, no panic, just pure focus. Thompson nodded as he followed Max's path. This is what we meant about partnership. He knows his job is to help us help them. Suddenly, Max stopped and barked again, this time with more urgency. He began digging at a small gap between 2 fallen concrete slabs. Through the opening, they could hear voices. "Commander," a weak voice called out in the alien language. "Is someone up there?" "Hold on," Stoneheart called back. "We're coming for you." "How many are with you?" "4 of our team and 7 humans," the voice replied. "Junior Officer Crystal Song is badly injured. The humans, they've been protecting her, using their own bodies to shield her from falling debris." Stoneheart's crystalline face flickered with surprise. He looked at Thompson, who was already organizing the rescue effort. Human emergency responders were arriving with equipment, following Max's marked safe path to reach the site. The next hour was a blur of careful coordination. Max stayed at his post, occasionally barking to help the rescue teams pinpoint exactly where the survivors were. When the first gap was wide enough, he squeezed through to reach the trapped people. "The beast," one of the trapped aliens cried out in fear. "It's coming to finish us." But instead of attacking, Max went straight to Crystal Song, the injured alien officer. He lay down next to her, offering warmth and comfort while the rescue teams worked to widen the opening. The young alien officer, her crystalline form cracked and dulled with pain, found herself instinctively reaching out to touch his fur. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why isn't it attacking us when we're vulnerable?" An elderly human woman, who had been helping support Crystal Song's damaged form, smiled through her dust-covered face. "Because that's not what dogs do, dear. They protect, they comfort, they save." One by one, the rescue teams helped survivors climb out of the rubble. Max stayed with Crystal Song until she was the last one, refusing to leave until he was sure she would be safely evacuated. When the medical teams finally lifted her out, Max emerged from the rubble covered in dust, but still alert, still ready to help if needed. Commander Stoneheart watched as his injured officer was carefully loaded onto a medical transport. Crystal Song was still reaching for Max, her crystalline fingers glowing with the same inner light that showed strong emotion among their people. "You must rest now, Crystal Song," Stoneheart said gently. "Commander," she replied, her voice weak but urgent. "Everything we thought we knew about Earth's beasts, we were so wrong. They're not weapons. She paused, searching for the right word in her language but finding none that fit. "Heroes," Thompson suggested quietly, watching Max get checked over by a vet. "But if you asked him, he'd just say he was being a good boy." Stoneheart's glow intensified as he watched Max accept a drink of water and a gentle pat from the vet, still somehow maintaining his dignified bearing despite being covered in dust and debris. "Perhaps," the commander said slowly, "it is time for the Granite Collective to redefine what we consider strength." The alarms wailed across Fort Carson as the ground began to shake. At first it was just a slight tremor, but within seconds it grew into violent shaking that sent books tumbling from shelves and lights swinging wildly overhead. "Earthquake," Thompson shouted. "Everyone under the tables. Now." The little girl screamed as she lost her balance, but before she could fall, Max was there, pressing against her legs to steady her. Stoneheart watched in amazement as the dog guided her beneath a sturdy table, using his body to shield her from falling debris. The shaking intensified. Somewhere in the building, support beams groaned under the stress. Commander Stoneheart's security detail activated their personal shields, the crystalline energy fields glowing bright blue in the chaos. "The structural integrity is failing," one of them reported, his voice cutting through the noise. "Commander, we must evacuate." But Stoneheart had noticed something else. The veteran in the wheelchair had tipped over, trapped beneath a fallen bookshelf. Without hesitation, Max left the girl's side and rushed to help, barking loudly to draw attention to the situation. "Your beast abandons its guard post," Stoneheart's second-in-command exclaimed, pointing at Max leaving the girl. Thompson was already moving to help the veteran. "No, he's alerting us to someone in danger. That's what he's trained to do." More pieces of ceiling began to fall. The building's ancient frame wasn't designed to handle this level of stress. Through the windows, they could see other base buildings shaking, their walls cracking under the strain. "Commander," a new voice called out. 3 more members of the Granite Collective had just transported into the room, their crystalline forms flickering with urgency. "The quake has trapped our diplomatic team in the base conference center. The building's about to collapse." Stoneheart's eyes flashed with concern. "How many?" "5 of our people, plus 12 humans," the messenger reported. "Our transporters can't lock on through the interference from the quake." Before anyone could respond, Max let out a series of sharp barks. He had helped Thompson free the veteran, and now the dog stood by the door, looking back at them with intense focus. "He wants us to follow him," Thompson said, helping the veteran back into his wheelchair. "Max was cross-trained in search and rescue. He can help find your people." Stoneheart looked uncertain. This is exactly the kind of crisis that should trigger a war beast's violent instincts. Surely now we'll see its true nature. The building shuddered again, dust raining down from new cracks in the ceiling. They had to make a decision fast. "Commander," Thompson said firmly, "right now you have 2 choices. You can keep believing what you think you know about our dogs, or you can trust Max to help save your people. What's it going to be?" Another violent shake knocked several aliens off their feet. Their crystalline bodies clattered against the floor like falling gemstones. Through it all, Max waited patiently by the door, his posture alert but calm. Stoneheart rose to his full height, his surface glowing with internal light. "Lead the way, beast." "No, lead the way, Max." They quickly evacuated the family center, making sure all civilians were safely outside. Then, with Max in the lead, they rushed toward the conference center. The scene that greeted them was devastating. Half the building had collapsed, with more sections threatening to fall at any moment. From somewhere inside came muffled cries for help, both human and alien voices mixed together in fear and pain. Max didn't hesitate. With his nose to the ground, he began circling the building's perimeter, searching for a safe way in. His training kicked in automatically. Find the scent, locate the victims, mark the safe paths. Thompson watched Stoneheart's face as the commander realized that Earth's most feared war beasts were about to become his people's best hope for survival.